Dime, let's talk about creation a little bit.
Proofs for creation, one of my favorite topics. Let's talk.
Let's do it, man. Just look at the world around us, huh?
I'm fully convinced that the world was created, maybe even with humans in mind, at least partially. It took me a long time to come to this perspective, but now I see it. Let's look at some of it.
Let's do it. Yeah, it's just like the world around us is... If you were going to make a video game, how much better would you make than this? If you had your ultimate game to live inside of, you know?
The intricacies of nature is just hard to fathom how much interconnectedness there is in nature and how it all weaves together. And you know, nature is so brutal and but at the same time it's so perfect for kind of sustaining us and giving us you know, so many materials. It really is just incredible.
Let's look at the verse here. See if we can see the evidence for this being the truth. He hath made the earth by his power, he hath established the world by his wisdom, and hath stretched out the heavens by his discretion. Jeremiah 10:12. Yeah, just looking around us, it's just, I mean, what else could you ask for? Like, we have air, ground, like, there's a reason every video game you pretty much see is like basically a copy of what you see around us, I guess, you know, like
pretty hard to imagine anything else, right? Like I think one time we tried to imagine like a creature that wasn't based in anything that we already have on Earth, and it's very difficult to do. Like imagine a life form that doesn't look like a human or an animal, right? It's almost impossible to conceive of.
Yeah, I've heard similar about music also, how almost every song's kind of a riff off of what somebody's already heard or something like that. I don't know how much truth is to that, but it's just the environment around us. I mean, if you're going to try to make your perfect body, you might have wings, you might do something like that, but I guess if you could theoretically fly without wings, or we could get them in the future, then what are we really missing from what our body has right now, you know? The human body, the humanoid one specifically.
Yeah, the human body is pretty incredible. It's adaptable to almost any location on planet Earth, any kind of diet, any kind of like tool creation. I mean, there's very little that humans can't do, even though we see in nature evidence of other amazing qualities. You know, like the mantis shrimp can see more colors than we can see, yet you know, what are we really missing? You know, it doesn't hold us back in any meaningful way.
If you were going to make your own avatar in your own world, like what would you rather have than a humanoid form?
I guess most people would just want the humanoid form, but like the peak version of it, you know. But I think most people probably still would choose the humanoid form. Maybe there's people out there that would rather be like some sort of super dolphin or something. I'm, you know, no judgment.
The shape, though. But the shape, I guess you could say we're biased because we are humans. But I mean, really though, what do we really need that we don't have to explore three-dimensional reality?
For exploring reality, I think the humanoid shape is better. So for example, like the you know, the dolphin shape might be cool for a little while, but I think most people just would want that because, like, you know, dolphins don't have homework and dolphins don't have jobs, you know. But for exploring reality, you know, there's no opposable limbs, there's no real no opposable thumbs, no real arms. You know, how are you supposed to explore reality with that shape? You know, it might not be the same at all.
Yeah, and it's just perfect, basically. We could have wings one day, and we could have better vision one day, and just the general shape of the humanoid form, though, it's hard to think of anything that would be greater, in my opinion.
It's also better maybe for intimacy, right, between people, compared to a lot of animals that just kind of have this very basic coupling mechanism. I know animals have intimacy in general, but humans have a very advanced form of intimacy available to them in a lot of different ways. Um, and part of that is due to our form. Like without the design of the human body, we wouldn't be able to do a lot of these things. It'd just be very, very brute and very basic comparatively.
Let's not even get into how beautiful the female form is. I guess that's another thing you could say is biased, but look how the Fibonacci spiral, how many ways it appears in both men and women, really, but a particular women. It's just that's like the fingerprint of creation that we'll have to get into another time more so, I guess. But
We could probably do a whole video on the Fibonacci sequence. It won't land as hard if we don't have slides, but I was recently studying, the Fibonacci progression in the bones in the hand, and then another Fibonacci progression between the hand and the forearm. And it's just really incredible how many places in nature it shows up. And one thing that struck me with that was, sure, we could say that maybe all biological life would naturally have a Fibonacci progression in it, right? But where is the relationship between biological life and, say, like a storm cell or a galaxy spiral? These things also have Fibonacci spirals in them, and there's no relationship between the spiral arm of a galaxy and like biological life. So it's mind blowing enough to say that the same mathematical ratios are found in the human body and in a ram's horn and all these different animals. But people could say, oh well, it's just because they're all part of the animal kingdom. But when you start throwing
yeah.
you start throwing non-living things in there, and it starts to make no sense at all.
Throwing the Great Pyramid as well, like the video we did before. Like whoever built that apparently thought there was something special about it. Very interesting.
It's the signature of not only all life, but all creation. It's kind of really makes no sense from a secular perspective why these same mathematical ratios would appear over and over and over. It kind of defeats the argument that it's all random on its face, in my opinion.
Just getting back to how the human body and how like ideal this world is around it. It's like this world's basically a paradise planet that fell into creation. If you really look at it, how well the fruits fit in our hands, how well horses are for us to ride them. What do you think?
Well, I can hear the non-theists, getting their pitchforks ready, but it is kind of telling how the super majority of fruits are the perfect size for human consumption. And I know that to a degree, some of them have been selectively bred that way, but even the fact that they can be selectively bred to that point in a relatively small amount of time since agriculture started. Even just according to the official story, I mean, agriculture has not been going on that long, and have all these fruits and vegetables that fit perfectly in our hand, digest perfectly. It really is amazing in a lot of ways. I'm sure someone could point out some edge cases, but I mean, the super majority of things are very well designed for human consumption.
And also just horses for riding, llamas, camels. Hey, some camels even have the two bumps to help keep us on the ride, right? um, and then even cats and dogs. It's like there's some special little thing for everybody. Cats for introverts, dogs for extroverts.
That's a funny way to look at it, but it makes sense. It's like a companion animal for all the personality types really does exist.
And also getting back to the whole fruit and breeding stuff, like if you were going to make a video game, you might put in little things like that to like make fun, to have a way to advance and make things more comfortable and hang out. and even gemstones and gold. Like, it's just, if I was gonna make my own video game world, like, would it be any better than this? I mean, there might be less death and pain and disease, but scripture also touches on that, how that's part of, essentially rebel admins of the whole system coming and rebelling and help leading to more rebellion and the results and consequences of it, I guess.
Yeah, it's almost a comforting thought. And people like to ask, why is there so much pain and disease? And it's like, well, we live in a fallen world, a lot of that stuff is due to like environmental toxins and pollution and stuff like that. It wasn't necessarily part of the original design, but, it's something we have to deal with. People's free will oftentimes is what put that pollution there in the first place.
Yeah, there's that. And then there's also the scripture where he talks about the wheat and the tares, how even if we can't perfectly understand exactly what went wrong, he kind of helps illustrate it in that parable, to where there was men were sleeping and an enemy came and scattered tares among the wheat, and then in the morning time they were there, and the men asked the owner of the land or something like that if they could, get rid of all the tares, and he acted like it wasn't ideal to destroy all the tares, which could be representative of evil or evil people, right away, because it could do collateral damage to the good wheat, or the good people, or what have you. So it kind of help explain the whole dilemma in that sense too, I guess. Even if we don't know all the details, but we trust in him. If we could be collateral damage, we might even be like hostages in a way right now.
Yeah, I like to look at it as we're both the pawns and the prize in a galactic struggle.
Yeah.
But that's another good point, is that not only we like to think of ourselves as the good people, right? As we like to think of ourselves as the wheat, and we don't want to get uprooted when the tares are collected. But also, it's there's a good chance that a lot of us would be the tares that would get uprooted, and
That would be a good point.
Having more time is a form of mercy in order for us to come to repentance and to do the repentance that's necessary to become saved.
There might also be some karmic type stuff at play, whether you believe in reincarnation or whatever else. Like, and even in the scriptures, they apparently did animal sacrifices to help atone for certain things in a way that we don't necessarily understand all the way yet. Like, I don't know how that works, but even in the scriptures, I guess they asked him when that kid was born, if he was born blind because of his own transgressions or his parents. So that was the normal understanding at that point in time, even among his disciples who had been following him around, even though that was a particular instance where it was neither, maybe. So don't be throwing a stone at somebody for if a lot of stuff's going bad in their life, but there might even be some kind of something like that at play. Regardless, there's a lot of different ways to address that whole dilemma, I guess, but let's trust in the Creator and see what, when we get more answers eventually. He acts like there's nothing hidden that shall not be revealed, so we trust and love and take one day at a time in a way. Let's talk about the eyeball a little bit if we're going to get heavy into the scripture, or into the creation. Let me read this quote from H.S. Hamilton, MD, The Retina of the Eye, an Evolutionary Roadblock. That a mindless, purposeless, chance process such as natural selection acting on the sequels of recombinant DNA or random mutations, most of which are injurious or fatal, could fabricate such complexity and organization as the vertebrate eye, where each component part must carry out its own distinctive task in a harmoniously functioning optical unit, is inconceivable. The absence of transitional forms between the invertebrate's retina and that of the vertebrates poses another difficulty. The picture speaks of intelligent, creative design on an infinitely high order. I mean, this guy might know a little bit more about eyes than we do, but
is that
what are
true?
we supposed to
There's
think?
not very many transitional fossils to show eyes developing over time.
Well, let's talk more about a certain fossil in just a moment. But what is he? What are they? Are we supposed to think just like photon recepting like pigments showed up, and that's just part of the like? It's just it's a little much. I guess this guy knows more
I guess
about
they
it than
just
we
want
do.
us
But
to believe that it just randomly happened one day, and that helped the animals get find food and survive better and reproduce better, and that explains it. But to me, yeah, the design is a bit too elegant, a bit too polished, to believe that it's all random chance. It doesn't really make sense to me.
also, just think about how beautiful the eye is in itself. Another example of what we were just talking about. People might say it's just it's biased, but it's not just a human bias because we can look around at all kinds of stuff. But even going back further, if our eyes are a product of millions of years of evolution through a process in which a succession of creatures slowly grasped one rung higher at a time on a ladder of beneficial mutations, then should we expect for something as ancient as a trilobite to already have extremely advanced vision? But let me read this quote here. One of the most complex parts of the trilobite is its eye. As humans, we only have one lens in each eye. Some trilobites have over 15,000 hexagonal shaped lenses in each eye. Mainstream scientists label the trilobite eye as the oldest in the fossil record and the most complex of any animal species. How could one of the oldest fossil species have the most complex eyes in history? What do you think, Iodine?
That's hard to even grasp. I didn't realize it's the most complex out of all animals, and it's the earliest one. That might not make any sense at all.
It's almost like the creators like giving us little, little or not so little hints, like, "Hey, over here, look, guys," or something. Like, so they went from just having a single pigment that looked like recepted photons better than others, and then all of a sudden, the first or oldest fossil, it's got the best in history. Um, let's talk about sexual organs a little bit too. Like, how much sense doesn't it seem like they're made a little bit for each other?
Yeah, it's never really made sense to me that male and female is a random mutation. Because wouldn't there need to be complementary mutations that happen in the same area at the same time, and those two people find each other, and they decide to reproduce, and the result of that reproduction is itself fertile and self-sustaining. It's a lot of coincidence to ask for. I just don't understand how a male female distinction can evolve from random chance. That's never really made sense to me.
I guess the mainstream approach, they try to say the first organs they had both on one creature and they just somehow evolved to only have one or the other. First of all, I don't know how that would happen, but what in the fossil record suggests that's the case?
I'm not aware of any fossils that suggest that. Yeah. And why would if we're following the evolutionary model, why would splitting the sexual organs into two different beings be more suitable for survival? It would
Nice
seem
point.
to me that having the both sexual organs on one creature be far more suitable to survival or reproducing on demand or that sort of thing. So I just don't understand the selection pressure to reward the split up, sexual organs that way.
Be a nice point. If you had one damaged, you could still use the other, vice versa. All kinds of benefits to have both, I guess. In a similar vein, let's talk about symbiosis in general. If there's actually one example after another in nature where it seems, two or more things are essentially made for the other. Let's talk about some examples. Fungi provides vital protection and moisture to algae, and algae also nourishes fungi which with photosynthetic nutrients. And what does pollination not help keep alive? And if there are plants in the world that carry on with the help of pollination, then what did they do before pollinating insects, if we are supposed to believe that they existed long prior to them existing? There are sophisticated relationships among diverse creatures across the world that hint of underlying intelligent design and forethought at work.
Yeah, that's always bothered me too. Very similar to the previous comment that I made. There are some insects that rely on certain plants to live, and there are some plants that rely on certain insects to live, and they don't have options, right? There's a few plants where it's just this one insect is the only insect that services that plant, right? And so, I guess we're supposed to believe that the insect and the plant randomly evolved simultaneously. I could see one thing randomly evolving, but how are we getting these symbiotic relationships evolving at the same time? It just really doesn't make any sense.
Right. And I'll also hint at the nature of the creator, too. I guess he wants us to be working together, likes love, likes teamwork.
That's kind of a nice point. Yeah, it's a comforting thought, really.
Now, also, let's talk about food a little bit. This might be more of a controversial topic, but are you aware that a lot of, or I guess we've talked about before, that a lot of foods, what they look like, are like they help things that, for instance, the walnut. How much does a walnut look like the brain? And I guess almost everybody's heard that nuts are good for the brain.
Yeah, I think this one goes back all the way to ancient Greek times. They were already theorizing that walnuts were good for the brain. This is a real casual link, right? And I can hear the hardcore science nerds, getting frustrated with our lack of rigor here, but it is kind of an interesting thing. Even if these are just soft trends, it's interesting to me that walnuts tend to help an organ that looks a lot like the walnut. I think that's telling.
Let's read some of these. A walnut looks like a little brain, a left and right hemisphere, upper cerebrums and lower cerebellums. Even the wrinkles or folds on the nuts are similar to those of the neocortex. Scientists claim that walnuts help in developing over 3 dozen neurotransmitters within the brain, enhancing the signaling and encouraging new messaging link between the brain cells. Walnuts help warding off dementia. They also extract and break down the protein-based plaques associated with Alzheimer's diseases, according to a study by James Joseph of Tufts University in Boston. Or take the tomato. A tomato has 4 chambers and is red in color. So also the heart is red and has 4 chambers. Research has confirmed that tomatoes are loaded with lycopene, and it is indeed pure heart and blood food. The consumption of lycopene has been proven to help reduce the risk of heart disease. Tomatoes are also a great source of vitamin C, which is crucial for heart health. Or take the kidney beans. Kidney beans actually heal and help maintain kidney function, and are shaped exactly like the human kidneys, hence their name. Kidney beans provide a variety of minerals and vitamins, and so are generally beneficial for your health. If your kidneys are healthy, kidney beans can, when consumed as part of a balanced diet, contribute to your kidney health. If your kidneys are diseased, you might need to moderate your intake of kidney beans. But, yep, it's just one example after another. Calcium for bones. Actually, an astonishing fact that bones are 23% sodium, and celery is also 23% sodium.
Whoa, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool how the bunching at the bottom, I never noticed that it looks like bones before, but I guess it kind of does. Yeah. Where it comes out of the sprout in the ground.
It's pretty interesting. Exact same percentage. Or 23. Avocados, pregnant women. Quote, modern research shows that when a woman eats 1 avocado a week, it balances the birth hormones, sheds unwanted birth weight, and can even prevent cervical cancer. It even takes exactly 9 months to grow an avocado from blossom to ripened fruit, just like a human baby.
Wow, that's pretty wild.
Yeah. All right. Let's look at ginger. Gingerol, the ingredient that gives ginger its strong scent and taste, is listed in the USDA database of phytochemicals as having the ability to prevent nausea and vomiting. Ginger also slows down the growth rate of bowel tumors. Once again. All right, this next one. How funny is this one? Figs even grow in pairs, and like it says here, figs are believed to work on the testicles to prevent male sterility, increase sperm count, and extend the lifespan of sperms. And yes, they come in pairs too. I mean, when does coincidence become more than that?
Yeah, this might be too casual of a relationship for some people, but it's worth considering. I mean, this kind of stuff is what we're saying is that this would not happen randomly, right? So, to me, it's some pretty good soft proof.
How about this one? What does that look like? Any part of the human body there?
It's got to be eyes.
Studies have displayed that the consumption of guarana extract helps to combat age-related eye conditions such as glaucoma and macular degeneration. In addition, studies also show that subjects who consume guarana on a regular basis reported better vision than those who did not. As such, guarana extract protects your eyes against potential damage and also helps to maintain good eye health for all age groups. Here's just some other ones that, let's look here. There's just so many. If we could do a whole video just talking about these.
It's always struck me how like tree branches and tree roots tend to look a lot like blood vessels in the human body.
Yeah. Guess we got sprouts and sperm, broccoli and tumor related stuff. Might have heard broccoli was good to fight cancer before. How about the ovaries and the olive, the carrot and the eye? I guess just about anybody's heard of the carrots being good for your vision. If you look at when you slice it up, compare it to like the iris. But yeah, just look into it, But we move on, let people do their own research. But really, it's like just going back to the whole concept we started with, how the world around us just kind of seems, or more than kind of seems, designed for us, or designed for life. It'd be two main philosophies of health and medicine: that the body was designed by an all-wise creator. He designed the food supply to provide our needs, and then the body is a random collection of chemicals that are formed by chance over billions of years. Diseases should be treated with drugs. Getting back at, or getting into just science in general, though. I guess you were just studying soon before we came on here about the elements, but it says here that I guess we're generally told the Big Bang produced hydrogen and helium, and yet there are 100 other elements. Where'd these other ones come from? What were you saying before?
The use hydrogen, and then from there you get your basic stars, kind of like our star, and fusion can go all the way up to iron. So if it goes long enough and hot enough, it can go from hydrogen up to helium. From helium, it can go all the way up the chain, all the way up to iron, but it stops at iron, generally speaking. And then from there, the story is that any element higher than iron would just come from supernova explosions. So, like, for example, apparently all the gold in the universe originated in a supernova at some point. Does that sound right to you, though?
I guess this isn't really my field, but another example of evidence that mainstream's a little bit, they're just jumping through hoops, I guess, to try to get to what they believe. But if you're a secular materialist, you might have to, come up with an answer, even if it's jumping through hoops. It's almost like Minecraft. Aren't there different material blocks, Like, it's like just a beautiful world around us. There might be uses for all these things, too, that a lot of them we haven't even figured out yet,
Well, you got that right. There's so much still not understood about a lot of these elements.
All right, let's jump into the first law of thermodynamics. It tells us that matter cannot be created or destroyed. And if both matter and energy have no natural way of coming into existence from within the universe itself, then does that not stand to reason that matter and energy came from some source outside the universe?
Or outside, yeah, it might be one of the biggest problems with the Big Bang in general, right? Like, like I don't have a problem with the Big Bang, because you could just, a theist could just say, well, that's how God did it, right? It doesn't necessarily disprove God. It could prove God, right? Because you could just say that's how God did it. But the problem with the Big Bang is that, at least the conventional model, is if you have all the matter in the known universe squeezed down into an area the size of your own fist, it's going to create a super black hole, right? I mean, you're literally taking every black hole in existence and combining all of them into a huge super black hole. So if light and matter cannot even escape a regular black hole, then it's going to take a ton of energy for all matter in the known universe to escape the strongest black hole in history, right? So where did all this energy come from? It's a question that's always bothered me, and I've never really gotten a decent answer.
Yeah, that's an interesting point too. I didn't really think about that before you mentioned it. I know of, but yeah, where did matter and energy come from, though? If they're essentially the same thing, or they play off of each other, where'd that original matter and energy come from? Where's the spark that brought it into existence? It's kind of like the golden spiral, how it goes on and on.
Yeah, that's another problem with the Big Bang, is even if you have the Big Bang, it still requires all this matter to already exist in order for it to be collected and condense down and then explode, right? So it's a violation of the first law of thermodynamics in a sense. That if you go back far enough, you're always going to have this problem of where did it come from originally.
Now, don't some scientists nowadays, or most of them, think that it keeps opening and collapsing on itself over and over? Do you know if the official theory is that there even wasn't a beginning at this point, if they act like it keeps on reoccurring?
Well, you still have that problem, of where it came from originally, right? It just moves the problem somewhere else. But that is one model for the Big Bang, is that it's cyclical. But, there's no way to prove that. And there's actually 27 competing models for the Big Bang right now, and they can't all be correct. Right? We can if there's 27 competing models, we can assume that at least a couple of them are probably wrong. And no one's saying that one of them has to be right either. They could all be wrong, right? So we know for sure that at least some of them are wrong, right? It's just common sense that if there's 27 competing models, at least one of them is wrong. They could all be wrong. They don't. It's not like one of them has to be correct. So, yeah, it's guesswork. It's maybe wishful thinking.
How about the second law of thermodynamics? That might even be more compelling on our front.
That one is one of my favorites. So
essentially tells us everything tends toward disorder.
Yeah, that's right. So everything breaks down over time.
Now, atheist or a skeptic might come in and counter, saying, "Oh, that's only within a closed system." But what's more of a closed system than everything that exists?
Yeah, the universe is definitely a closed system.
So, and then, they might be like, well, it's certain conditions on the earth that, but first of all, what is just adding energy to earth might not really solve the problem, right? You might have to have something that can actually, first of all, take like chlorophyll and use photosynthesis that can like harness the energy and use it for something useful, right? And then you might need like some kind of intelligence or some kind of pre-programmed system to be able to even make it more organized too.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, every cell in existence is a copy of a previous cell. I'm not prepared to believe that the first cell just, randomly popped into existence one day. Every single cell in existence is a copy of a previous cell.
But if we look at this, then if everything's tending towards disorder, so imagine how orderly it was at t=0 or at the very beginning. Like if something there was that
I doubt
ordered
we
back
would
then.
even recognize it, but that is another interesting point that you made, because we can use the second law of thermodynamics to prove that the universe absolutely had a beginning, right? So, um, you know, we can observe that heat flows from warm bodies to cool bodies over time, like heat dissipates over time. And right now, we can observe that the heat in the universe is not evenly distributed. There are warm spots and cool spots. So, logically, our conclusion is that the universe had a beginning. Time is not infinite, right? That's a scientific proof that time is not infinite, and the universe definitely had a beginning. So I think a lot of people miss that, but that is scientifically proven at this point. There's no real question.
All right, let's look at another verse. See if there's any hints of knowledge of the second law of thermodynamics and from ancient times. Of old hast thou laid the foundations of the earth, and the heavens are the work of thy hands. They shall perish, but thou shalt endure. Yea, all of them shall wax old like a garment. As a vesture shalt thou change them. Or shalt thou change them? And they shall be changed, but thou art the same, and thy years shall have no end. How about this shirt right here? That's from like, what is it, like 5,000 years ago? Or actually, it's a dress, allegedly. Imagine going out your Sunday best back in the day.
They had some serious style back then. It's
Hey,
it's
this
nice.
chick was rocking it, right?
Style hasn't really changed all that much, I guess.
But yeah, just take anything, man. When do you sit anything outside without the sun basically breaking it down? Just saying the sun gives enough energy to combat the second law of thermodynamics on Earth. How much does that really solve? If you see what the sun normally does to things down here.
Yeah, outside of rocks and stuff, I can't think of anything that really lasts a long time. Pretty much everything just breaks down real fast.
All right, I guess this is a pretty short little video this time, but if we wrap it up with one more verse, that kind of another one hinting at this whole concept. Lift up your eyes to the heavens and look upon the earth beneath, for the heavens shall vanish away like smoke, and the earth shall wax old like a garment, and they that dwell therein shall die in like manner. But my salvation shall be forever, and my righteousness shall not be abolished. Greater be praised. I guess we should reach out to the Creator ASAP, even if you're not confident in a certain worldview yet, even Christ Himself. Why wouldn't you at least reach out and try to find that theoretical Creator, even if you don't believe right away?
Yeah, just looking at nature, I always knew there was something there, and it took me a while to accept that it's an intelligent creator. But now I'm 100% convinced, and it's worth it to reach out. And if you're a scientist, do an experiment. Reach out and see if you get a
Yeah,
response.
interesting point. Abiogenesis as well. When does life come from non-life? But yeah, man, let's wrap it up and do another one soon. Thanks for being here.
Likewise, thanks for your company and thanks for doing this.
All right, Creator be praised.
Bless the name.